Brandon Sanderson-senpai has gone full anime with his newest book, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and I'm here to review it all for you here on Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And when I say that Brandon Sanderson-senpai went full anime on this, I do mean he went full anime. I'm going to explain how he did that as I break down what on earth this beautiful book here is. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter might just be Sanderson's best written romance across all of his books. And I know that there are fans out there of all different kinds of great couples in his stories. I mean, I like Vin and Elend and Shalon and Adolin. I think those are some fine ships right there. But if we're going to talk about just a straight romance, then Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is probably Sanderson's best work. It's not a perfect romance, though, mind you. There's definitely a lot of Sanderson quirks thrown on in there. There's some things that you might feel were a little bit forced, but holy cow, it was still really good. I was gripped from beginning to end, and there is so much that this book has to offer. If you're a fan of anime and of manga, you're immediately going to get stuff from isekai to gender bending to body swapping. All the onsen scenes you could ever want are in this book. Yes, for those who think that Sanderson is a little bit too tame, you're going to be getting a ton of hot spring scenes in this book, though maybe not quite the way that you were expecting. I'll let you discover that on your own. But there is a ton going on in this book that I think is just really, really good. So let me give you a quick breakdown of the plot and some of the things and some of the messages that are in this book that I just find absolutely fascinating, beautifully written, and I'll let you then take it from there if you want to read this book for yourself. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter follows the story of two older teens, Yumi and Painter. Yumi is a girl that's been chosen by the spirits. Her job is to create art from rocks. Go into these rock gardens that villages have laid out for her and create these beautiful sculptures with these stones, mesmerizing the spirits of the land, who will then come and will then, because they are so mesmerized by the art that she has created, listen to her petitions and become and create things that the villagers need in order to conduct their daily lives and to conduct their business and just to make life easier for them. This land, this world is burning. It's hot. There's very little water. Things are regulated by strict tradition, strict rules, and the limitation of the resources, which is again why people like Yumi are so important. These spiritual women who have the ability to commune with the spirits, because unless the spirits give the people their assistance, people will die very quickly upon this very harsh planet. And Yumi has wanted to experience a life outside of her role, because all she has ever known and all she can ever be is a girl and a woman who dedicates her life to calling spirits to the aid of the people around her. She can't do anything more than that, and she wants to live her own life. She wants to learn who she could be otherwise. Painter, on the other hand, lives in an entirely different world, where Yumi is in a very backwater, very ancient kind of Korean-like society. Painter is basically in magical modern Japan, where they have all kinds of technology that is powered by these beautiful lines of energy that flow throughout the city, that ward off the permanent state of darkness that covers the entire planet. These people do not know the sun at all. All they can see is a distant star that pierces the shroud of darkness. And out of this shroud of darkness comes nightmares, comes monsters that can destroy entire cities, if these nightmares are allowed to feed off of the dreams and creativity and life essence of the people within various communities. Painter's job is to move throughout the city every day and seek out nightmares. Should these nightmares be found, then what Painter does is he draws the nightmares to him through his own creativity, through his own life essence, and he paints a mural and forces the nightmares to become whatever it is that he paints. And once they've been painted and have been trapped within that painting, then they cease to be, and it takes weeks, if not months, for that nightmare to eventually come back and try again. Painter is an interesting individual because, well, he's got a whole lot going on in his life. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he's not particularly well liked by any of the other nightmare painters. And I'm not going to give away the spoilers as to why, because that is an emotional roller coaster ride that you kind of have to go on for yourself. But I will say this, that the stories of Yumi and Painter really hit hard just with who they are. There's a lot about who they are that I found that I could identify with and connect with very, very well. If you remember your teenage years, if you are a teenager, you are going to find a lot to enjoy within this story, because it is a story of two teenagers trying to figure out their place in the world. And part of that is learning who they are through an unexpected change of events and a potential romance. One day, after Yumi is able to summon more spirits than she ever has before and richly bless the community that she's visiting, the spirits reach out to her in the night and offer her a special gift. However, she's like, no, I'm not supposed to live my own life, even though I want to so bad. That would just break tradition. And so she says, I'm fine, spirits, I don't need a gift. And the spirits then say, well, you've done so much, then maybe you can do something for us. You do so much for the people, we want you to do something for us. And she's like, well, yes, spirits, of course. And then they say, save us. And she's like, what? I'm supposed to save the spirits? What does that mean? And she's put onto this journey of figuring out what's happening to the spirits and how she can save them by body swapping with Painter. She and Painter, pretty much in the style of the anime movie Your Name, begin switching bodies and living in each other's worlds. And so they then have to learn how to perform the job of the other person, a job that is absolutely essential to the survival of their people. They have to learn how to do each other's jobs. Of course, they have to learn how to communicate with each other. You have all different kinds of fun shenanigans where they just don't get along, and there's so many misunderstandings. Basically, anything that you might like from the movie Your Name, you are going to get here in this story, but with a lot of Brandon Sanderson-isms. And of course, one of those isms is the fact that this book is placed within his connected fantasy universe, the Cosmere. If you are a fan of his other books, from the Stormlight Archive to Elantris to Mistborn to Tress and the Emerald Sea, there is really a lot there for you here. And especially if you've read the Stormlight Archive, you'll realize that this is a story that's not just being told by Hoid, but is being told by Hoid to people back on Roshar. He is trying to explain to people in their language and from their understanding what is happening on this other planet, which is so more advanced than they have ever seen, at least with Painter's world. And with Yumi's world, it's way more primitive than what is happening on Roshar. So for the people of the Stormlight Archive who are listening to the story, it's like, wait, what? What the heck is this? So if you're not a fan of Hoid and the way that he tells stories, well, this book might rub you a little bit the wrong way, but it is still fantastic. And it's not fantastic just because there's a bunch of onsen scenes, let me tell you. No, what I really love about this story is how two characters learn to communicate. One of the things that Sanderson said about writing the story, especially when he was looking at body swapping and gender bending manga and anime, is that for many of these stories, it's about how the people who are now in a fish of our water situation learn to communicate with other people and develop new relationships either for themselves or for the person whose body they're taking over by living that other person's life. Instead, he said he didn't want to do that. He wanted to be way more focused. He wanted to focus instead on the romance aspect. What would then happen if these two characters, because of the lives that they live, ended up being isolated? And so the only one that they can rely on is the other person. Now, as opposed to Your Name, where they can only communicate by sharing messages with each other, in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, the thing is this, is that whenever they swap bodies, the other person comes with and acts as a spirit who's just stuck there and can't really do anything other than give them verbal advice and guidance. However, should they touch, it will cause all kinds of weird things to happen to each other. So they try their best not to touch each other, which gets really interesting and funny because as they begin to fall in love with each other, there is the physical aspect of romance that they're unable to engage in, and that kind of adds some neat tension and hilarity to the story. Another thing that I really like about this is how you learn different perspectives from each other from entirely different worlds, showing that no one world is better than the other. They can both contribute something very meaningful and very precious to the other person. And learning the meaning of art. There is a lot of meta commentary in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter about the value of art, the value that we give it. And there's especially a really neat part in there that actually alludes to AI versus what humans can create. And I think that that's something that, if anything, especially if you enjoy the commentary around the whole AI debacle in Hollywood, you will definitely want to check it out, because Sanderson, I think, makes a very compelling argument for AI versus human art and human creations. And that's something that you'll definitely want to check out. I am not going to spoil how that all comes about right here, because that is something that you definitely need to read and experience for yourself, because it is a gut punch. I also really enjoy how Sanderson uses so many tropes within this story that if you are a fan of anime or if you've seen enough of it, you'll get to know. Like the lucky pervert is in there. I've already brought up the spring scenes, and then you also have a variation of the cherry blossoms, which Sanderson did so incredibly beautifully, and you don't realize that that's what he's doing until afterwards, and you're like, wait a second, oh my gosh, I just got a cherry blossom scene here in the story. And of course you get the gender bending, the body swapping, but also then the going and trying out outfits right here, going to a festival, all of these things that you just kind of take for granted in an anime story, especially one that usually involves romance. He uses every single anime and manga trope that you can imagine. Not really, that's me being a little bit hyperbolic right there, but he uses a lot of the very popular ones and grafts them into the story in a unique way, showing that you can use tried and true tropes and make them feel fresh by the way that you use them. So if you're someone who feels like romance, anime, and manga really don't have anything new or fresh to share on the scene, then try out Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, because I think you'll be very surprised with what Sanderson does using tried and true anime romance tropes. And this is definitely a slow burn story. Sometimes that can be really annoying to read, but here Sanderson makes the most of it by really helping us to get to know the two main characters. And by the end, you have no doubt in your mind that they are really truly in love with each other. And it makes sense why. Not only that, but the slow burn leading up to the action-filled climax also works really well because of everything that has been slowly established up unto that point. And Sanderson is really doing an excellent job of using his economy of words. The book looks thick, but it actually reads really fast. And it's amazing how much he packs in with so few words when you step back and think about it. Now, one aspect that I've not brought up in the book because it's not so much writing, but it is absolutely necessary in the story, is the artwork. Holy cow. Oh, it's so gorgeous. Aaliyah Chen is the artist for Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and her work is gorgeous. It really makes you feel like you're reading, in a way, a light novel or a manga, especially when you see the artwork, and it's just so dang good. And how she's able to bring in both the Korean and Japanese elements of these characters and of their worlds and blend them together in just such a fascinating, gorgeous way. I would love to see this movie adapted in anime format. Give it to the best to the best studios you possibly could. Let them have fun with it, and you would have a gorgeous movie. Now, some people would say, well, it smacks a little bit too much of Your Name, which I can see that being the case, but because there's just so much of Brandon Sanderson's own wackiness and the fact that this is a connected fantasy universe, so there are some really crazy things that come down the pipeline, and especially if you've read his other books, you're going to be like, oh boy, I was not expecting that, oh boy. It gets really exciting. It's enough to make it its own unique story. So I've been gushing over this right here. I'm just going to say 2 thumbs way up right here. This is, I think, Sanderson's best written romance. It's not his best written work, but because it's just such a well done romance, it's so fun, and it honestly hooks you from beginning to end. I give it my highest recommendation. When the book becomes available in hard copy format in October, please buy a copy. You want to have this book in your hands. You want to be able to just sit there and appreciate the artwork as you're reading along. There were times where I just stopped and I just stared at a page and was like, wow. And now that I know what's happening in that particular scene, it just feels like it's coming to life. This is the perfect merger of artist and writer coming together to tell a story. This is the kind of stuff that I would love to do with my own books. And I've actually been working kind of towards that. One of my upcoming books, at least from the release of this video, which will be The Monarch Mercenaries, I have worked with artists to try to really bring to life what is in that story. And holy cow, I love what they have done. And so when an artist and a writer can come together and manage to work together, to collaborate, to create complementary pieces of art, it is perfection. So that will do it for my gushing for Yumi the Nightmare Painter, because, oh boy, if I talk too much more, I will begin spoiling the story, and this is a story that you just can't have spoiled for you. Even if you have watched stuff like Your Name, there's still enough surprises that I think that you will get caught up in the story. You will be pleasantly surprised, and it will take you to places that you didn't expect. There were times where like, aha, I know what's going on, and I was right up until a certain extent. And then Sanderson was able to twist things around, give a special reveal that just deepened the romance, or made the world building even crazier, or really delivered an emotional gut punch. We're like, oh, I had not considered that about a character. Holy cow. It was just done phenomenally. Okay. So enough gushing right there. If you'd like more reviews and writing advice, then please check out our other videos here on our channel, or head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem. And if you're looking for writing exercises and the likes, we have them for you over at our Pinterest page. And if you'd like to support the work that we do here, please check out the books that we've published. Like I said, I've got a book coming out later on this month, Monarch Mercenaries. If you'd like to kind of get a head start on it, wink wink, I'd like you to then go check out Knights of Halley Cruise or Bleed, Steam, and Steel. If you like those books, you will most definitely like the Monarch Mercenaries. And if you don't like those books, you will still really love the Monarch Mercenaries, because that is the cure to boredom. But with all that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this amazing adventure that we call writing. It's always so great when I get to read and recommend a book that I just absolutely love. Please, once again, check out Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.